Welcome to the Lose Weight, Live Life podcast. If you're a female professional or entrepreneur who would do anything to lose weight, yet finds it impossible to stick to a diet, to eat less, or just what you think you should, this podcast is for you. I am your host, certified life and weight coach, Claire McKenzie. Listen in to learn how to stop overeating, lose weight for the last time, and create a relationship with food and yourself that you love, all without diet deprivation and self-sabotage. Hi everybody, I want to wish you a very warm welcome to episode number 27. And today I'm going to be talking to you about losing weight during lockdown. And the reason I wanted to do this particular podcast is because I'm noticing that everybody has a different story about losing weight during lockdown. Everybody has a different perspective and a different opinion. Everybody has different thoughts about whether it's a good thing to be losing weight during lockdown, whether it's harder to lose weight during lockdown, whether it's easier. And what is happening at the moment is that I'm noticing the women that I work with are having lots of thoughts about what is going to be different for them in terms of continuing their weight loss journey when lockdown ends. And just to say, when I'm talking about lockdown, I'm really talking about whatever your situation is, where you may be at the moment, whether you are somewhere in the UK, we've got different lockdown situations in different parts of the UK, whether you are abroad, you may or may not be in a different sort of type. The rules of your lockdown may vary, they may be different. You may be listening to this episode at a later stage where again there could be different rules. It doesn't really matter. The concepts that I talk about on this episode can be applied to any situation because of course, like lots of things that we look at on this podcast, what we really want to understand is your thoughts about it. It's not so much about the situation of what's going on, the circumstances, the facts of the situation in which you find yourself. It's understanding your thoughts about it and what you're making those thoughts mean and how you're feeling when you're thinking the way that you are. So let's start with considering, I guess, some examples of the sorts of things that I'm hearing my clients say, hearing ladies say to me, whether that's in my One Life Academy or the Mastermind, about what is more difficult and what is less difficult about their relationship with food that they're having at the moment, the part of their journey that they're on. So I am working with a lot of ladies whose weight loss is going really, really well. They've lost multiple stones and they're obviously really, really pleased with that they've lost this weight, but they are starting to wonder if they will be able to continue, for those ladies who have got quite a lot more weight to lose, or if they will be able to maintain that weight when they come out of lockdown, when the restaurants open, when there's an opportunity to socialise with people again, when the circumstances of their life become different. It could look like their work life being different in terms of, being out of the home all day if they're in home at the moment, or it could be, as I mentioned earlier, very much to do with the social aspects of it. It could also be to do with the different stresses that they may feel they experience when they are in a non-lockdown situation versus the current situation in which we find ourselves. And of course, the stresses that some of us are feeling in lockdown, some of us are maybe feeling less stressed and some of us may be feeling more stressed. So the thoughts that are coming up at the moment, the things that some of these ladies are thinking is they're noticing that they have some doubt, a sense of fear, a slight worry, concern or anxiety that when they move out of their current situation of lockdown, they will find that they don't feel as in control around food as they do right now in their current situation at home. I also have other ladies who I've worked with over maybe an extended period. I've got some clients who I started working with before we went into lockdown last year, the first lockdown. And so they've had the opportunity to explore their relationship with food and their thoughts about their weight loss through the first lockdown, coming out of lockdown in the summer, and then coming back into it now. And some of those ladies are feeding back that actually when they were out of lockdown, they found that it was much easier to eat the way that they wanted to not want to turn to food to help them to feel better, because there was more that they were able to enjoy and look forward to in terms of the environment and the opportunities available to them outside of lockdown during last summer in the UK. Opportunities to go on holiday, to socialise, all of those things. And that those opportunities gave greater opportunity for joy in their lives, greater opportunity for positive experiences and positive thinking. So they had less of a requirement, less of a need to want to turn to food to fill that gap, that void that is more challenging, they're finding, to fill whilst we're in this sort of somewhat restrictive lockdown that we're in at the moment, which is in February of 2021. And specifically, I'm in England. And of course, this really illustrates that it is always our thoughts about a situation, a circumstance, not the actual circumstance itself. So you can, two ladies of similar situations with regards to their work environment, their family environment, their age, could be thinking totally differently about what makes the advantages and disadvantages of losing weight in lockdown, and what makes things easier and what makes things more difficult. And what I've been talking to them, what I've been explaining to them, is that what's important here is that they are spending time learning the skills of creating this relationship with food and themselves that they want to have for life. And the skills that they're learning right now are the 7 areas that I talk about inside of all of my coaching programs. And they encompass understanding why we overeat, why they in particular overeat, and understanding the theories and the concepts and the psychology behind overeating, and taking away from that what is going on for them specifically. So they get to be really curious about what's happening for them, why they're overeating. They get to really understand that. That's going to be helping them whether they are in, whatever their environment they're in, whether they're in lockdown or not in lockdown. They're also building up the skill of creating a food framework, which is a process whereby they get to decide how they want to be eating in order to either lose or maintain their weight in a way that fits in with their lifestyle, with their food likes and dislikes, and all the other things. And through a very common sense, pragmatic approach, they're able to determine how they want to be eating in order to lose weight and to continue onwards on their weight loss journey, and then maintain when they get to the end of it. All of the skills that they're learning as a part of that process, they're becoming competent and doing that, again, are skills that are going to apply whether in lockdown or out of lockdown, because the part of the process there is enabling you to create a food framework that you trust and like, but also importantly, that is adaptable, because the circumstances of our life that impact how we want to be eating are always going to change. We're always going to be having different jobs. We're always going to be getting older. We're always going to be contending with illnesses or hormonal imbalances that impact how our body responds to food. And so part of the food framework process is having a system in place to continually be evaluating and refining in a simple way to enable you to move forward, so that your food framework will evolve and change as you evolve and change. Again, no matter what the circumstances in which you find yourself. And then the third skill that they're learning is how to make better food decisions more easily. And the tool that we use with this is planning. And the planning tool, the skill of planning, is something that they are using week in and week out. And having that skill embedded is going to be really useful and helpful to them, whether they are planning meals, which they are, cooking possibly breakfast, lunch and dinner for themselves and their entire family every single day, as they may be doing during lockdown, versus planning when they are maybe going out at restaurants for business meetings, whether they are traveling for business, whether they are socializing with friends and family for special occasions and at the weekends. But the important thing is that having that skill, that habit of planning and creating their plan for the week or for the few days ahead embedded is going to help them, again, whether they are eating in the house or eating outside of the house too. The fourth area that we look at is understanding how we're thinking about things. And this really goes to the very crux of this podcast episode, where I taught at the beginning that it's not the circumstances of the situations in which we find ourselves. It's what we think about those circumstances, what we make them mean, that determines how we feel, and that determines what we do or don't do it. How we think directly impacts our behavior through creating the feelings, the vibrations in our body that fuel us or block us from doing and not doing things. And so understanding how to observe your thinking is a phenomenal skill that's going to help you Again, not only in terms of losing your weight for life, but it's going to help you in every area of your life. The better skilled you get at being able to observe your own thinking, having this skill is unique to us being human beings. Being able to observe your own thinking, to question your own thinking, to explore it, to probe it, to ask yourself more about it, to understand what your thoughts, what you're making them mean, what's underlying them, and asking yourself very often the so what question. Why is that a problem? I'm assuming that if I'm thinking this way, that there's a problem. I know that because I'm feeling negative, but actually, why is that a problem? What if I'm wrong about that? What if it wasn't a problem? Learning this process of having an awareness of how you're thinking about things, probing it so that you understand it even better, understanding that those thoughts are totally optional, seeing that you can tweak them ever so slightly. So it's not like you need to do a sort of a 180 about turn and start believing something that you don't believe to be true. It's just seeing how can you just start to nudge and shift these thoughts a little tiny bit so that you can create more of what you want in your life more easily. And that is a skill that you can apply no matter what your situation. Then we've got the skill of the feelings. And again, so the thing with the feelings, I think, is that lockdown is bringing up a lot of emotion for people that maybe they haven't either felt before or they haven't noticed themselves feeling before. So many of us are noticing that the last almost 12 months we may have a thought, it has negatively impacted our mental health. We may notice ourselves being more angry in response to certain situations more often or more quickly. We may feel certainly that there are more things that trigger us, or that when we do get triggered, we're more reactive to how we're feeling. We may notice that we are more emotional than normal. We may notice, or we may think that we just feel numb and that we're sort of head down waiting for this time in our life to pass and be over. But enabling your emotions as a part of your weight loss journey is going to be helping you with all of that, because what we have tended to be doing if we are overeaters, if we've been using food to help us cope with our life, is that we have been pushing those feelings away or using food so that we don't feel them and to essentially numb them and almost like check out of our life. So never has there been, I would say, a more important time, or for some of us, for many of us, or maybe a more useful time for us to really increase our emotional awareness and understand what's going on for us, and understand importantly that part of being emotionally aware isn't knowing how to shift out of, feeling negatively about something. Yes, that's one of the skills that I help you learn, but importantly, it's about allowing those emotions to just be there, allowing yourself to sit with them and feel them until they pass. And when you can do that and you're not in a rush to move away from them, or you're not just trying to react to them, then you will find that it's easier to not overeat. You're going to have less need to shove a biscuit in your mouth in the afternoon to get you through the day, so that you can just feel that you can carry on, because you're practiced, you know what you're capable of in terms of maybe allowing things to feel a little bit hard or a little bit difficult for a short period of time, and know that nothing has gone wrong, there's nothing coming at you that you can't cope with. We also, of course, look at your relationship with yourself. And I think that never has it been more important. I mean, the more as I'm talking through these points now, and I'm sort of like, this podcast is, I'm talking to you about these points, I'm realizing more and more actually of the importance of doing this work right here, right now. Oftentimes, I think we want to put things off. It may be that we're managing family members being poorly. We may be juggling homeschooling. We may be trying to manage with some frustrated, unhappy teenagers or young adults who, are children living in our homes. Never has it been more important to work on your relationship with yourself. At a time where we are distanced from connecting from others in real life, rather than the sort of virtual Zoom life, it's really important that we become really well connected with ourselves, that we know what the relationship is that we want to have with ourselves. We understand how to put ourselves first, how to make ourselves priority. We understand how to think in a way that enables us to feel self-love and self-acceptance, that enables us to put self-care practices in place. So doing that work is really important now. And of course, again, it's work that we can carry forward with us in terms of whatever the next step of our journey may look like. And then finally, and I think this one probably is one of the challenging ones in lockdown, I talk about, as a part of your weight loss journey, looking at how you are living your life. Are you living your life on autopilot, letting life happen to you? Or are you being intentional about how you're spending your time? How are your priorities in how you spend your hours of your day aligned with your life values? And so in this area, we tend to look for life opportunities, that are circumstantial. We tend to want to go on new adventures, decorate our home, and all sorts of things that we may be wanting to do to live a more intentional life. We often think about goal setting. What do we want to have? What do we want to do? What do we want to create? And, I think most of us would agree, although of course this is just my thought, I do think that doing those things right now, the things at least I know that I would love to be doing and planning, it is more difficult because of this lockdown situation in which we find ourselves, where we are restricted from traveling. And so again, it's an opportunity to use this time, because if we can be intentional about how we live the hours of our day in lockdown, right here, right now, it's going to be so much easier. And I think, again, my thought, so much more fun when we come out of lockdown and all of a sudden we have so much more opportunity available to us. So I've just really sort of talked through the 7 areas there that we focus on and we work on, and sort of think about how lockdown may be impacting those areas, whether it's sort of changing the skills that we're building there in terms of how we're using those tools, and also thinking about how we can apply them when we move on out into the outside world. I also wanted to take a moment to think about your motivations for losing weight. So maybe not so much for those of you that are quite a way along on your weight loss journey, but maybe some of you who are listening may have been listening to a few episodes. Maybe you think this is sounding interesting, but you haven't started your weight loss journey yet. Maybe you're noticing that you're telling yourself that you think you should, but that you really don't want to. Maybe you're thinking that lockdown feels hard enough right now, and so why on earth would you want to start restricting what you're eating, or focusing on foods that you can't have? And if this is how you're thinking about it, then I, of course, would like to encourage you to see that it's not going to be very appealing to get started right here, right now. When you think it's going to be difficult, it is going to feel more difficult. So for you, I would encourage you to think about, how do I want to be thinking about this? Ultimately, get really clear with yourself about whether or not you want to make changes to your relationship with food and yourself and how you're eating, and the reasons you want to make those changes. Don't go telling yourself that you have to lose weight in order to be healthy. Maybe you are waiting for some surgery and you've been told that you need to lose weight to be healthier before that you can have it. Or maybe you're concerned about prediabetes. Maybe you've noticed some menopausal related weight gain, all sorts of things. And maybe you're telling yourself that you need to improve how you're eating, that you need to lose weight. And when we tell ourselves that we need, or we must, or we have to do these things, we're not really owning it. We are not buying into or we're not being clear with ourselves. We're not being honest with ourselves as to whether we do or we don't want to do these things. So if you notice yourself telling you that you must, or you should, or I have to lose weight, I really want you to ask yourself, do I want to? Do I want to lose weight? And you'll probably have a mixed response to that question. What are the reasons I do want to lose weight? What are the reasons I don't want to lose weight? Write them all down on paper, and then decide at the end of it, when you've looked at both sides, do you want to or do you not want to? You absolutely get to choose. If you're telling yourself you're going to embark on a weight loss journey because you have to or because you need to, I want you to take the first step of getting really, really honest with yourself. Either own it and say, I really want to, or be honest with yourself and say, I want to, but right now I don't. So it may well be there's a part of you that wants to have the benefits of the results that comes with losing weight, of creating that relationship with food and yourself that you love. But actually right now, you don't want to be cutting out sugars and refined carbohydrates because you believe they're getting you through the day. And what is more important for you as a first step of your journey, rather than trying to restrict those foods in a way that doesn't feel good, that doesn't feel self-loving, that feels like you being a little bit bullyish with yourself or a little bit mean to yourself? What I encourage you to do instead is to be really, really honest with the fact that you right now, you can't see how you can get through your day without those foods. And that's okay. You can still start doing this work without changing how you're eating. Just by increasing your awareness of what's going on for you, seeing your thoughts, watching yourself, observing yourself as you eat those foods, as you hit your mid-afternoon slump and you reach for the biscuits, just be watching and be really curious with yourself about what's going on for you there, and start to wonder if actually you could maybe replace those biscuits with a bit of sort of healthy, natural, full-fat yogurt and some strawberries or some cherries or something like that. You're not telling yourself you've got to. You're not telling yourself you're going to. Right now, you're just being curious and exploring what you maybe could or couldn't be doing. And you're getting really honest with yourself in terms of deciding how you're currently thinking about whether you do or you don't want to. And I really want to say that if right now you're thinking, I can't face this, I can't do this, I don't want to lose weight, allow that to be okay. Say, right now, I don't want to change how I'm eating, and that's okay. And also know that it doesn't necessarily mean that next week, next month, next year, you won't feel differently. You may very well be ready. Now, there are things that we can do to help ourselves be ready. And part of that, as I said, is being curious about meeting yourself where you're at and observing your thinking and toying with, what if I'm wrong about this? What if it's not as difficult to cut out the afternoon snacks as maybe my brain wants to tell me it is? How is it possible for me to change how I'm eating, to lose weight, to get the results that I want in a way that feels good? And if you're at that point in your journey, then I really encourage you to also consider getting help and getting support in whatever ways and means are available to you. And of course, I recommend that you get the help and support you get is with somebody who is very much focused on mindset shifts to help you lose weight rather than going on another diet or a new diet. That's not what I recommend because it's a very short-term fix. It's sticking cream on a rash without actually finding out what caused the rash in the first place. So we're not tackling what's going on for you at the roots, at the source of the problem. So whether you are well on your way to meeting your weight loss goal, whether you've just started or are planning to get started, or whether you're just curious but you're not ready yet, what I want you to take away from this podcast is a pledge to yourself that you will take 5 minutes to explore how you are thinking about losing weight during these COVID times, no matter what your current state of lockdown. And if you're listening to this podcast in years to come and COVID is a distant memory, you can still do the same, but think about your current situations of your life and how they're going to hinder or help your weight loss efforts. So ask yourself, how do I think lockdown makes losing weight easier? How do I think it makes losing weight more difficult? What do I like and what do I dislike about losing weight in lockdown? Why have I formed these opinions? What do I make them mean? Is it possible that I could see things differently? And what difference would that make to how I feel about certain things? And remember, no matter how you are thinking about this, your thoughts will start to become your truth because your brain will seek evidence that your thinking is true. So you will repeatedly think those thoughts over and over until you create the reality of them. Okay, so that is what I have for you today. Have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Thanks everybody and take care. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and are ready to live a more intentional life, lose weight as a part of that journey, and create a relationship with food and yourself that you love, then I would be honoured to be your coach. There are 2 ways that you can work with me. You can join my monthly membership program, My One Life Academy, that gives you self-paced learning, supported by twice weekly live calls and a whole lot more. Or you can join the waiting list for my next 6-month Lose Weight, Live Life Group Coaching Mastermind Intensive. Go to www.thebestyou.coach/coaching to find out all the details.